Well, everyone's talking about the big solar eclipse that's going to happen on April 8th. And today I wanted to take a look at how is the solar eclipse going to be influencing King Charles? Because a solar eclipse is such a powerful karmic energy, and it represents a very powerful force in our lives. Now, the royal family has been going through a lot of turmoil recently. Catherine, Princess of Wales, was diagnosed with cancer, and King Charles was also diagnosed with cancer. So, we're trying to look at these astrological events to see if we can get more information about their particular situation and what could we be seeing in the near future here. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get all of my videos about the royal family. I also do videos on important transits and also videos on celebrities. By the way, I do practice Vedic sidereal astrology. So before people comment on King Charles being another sign, just be aware this is Vedic sidereal astrology. In this form of astrology, you actually could be any of the 12 signs on any given day. The sign actually changes every 2 hours. Now, if you're interested in a reading, check for details down below. And also, by the way, I just want to thank you all for all the new subs and all the support that you all have been giving me. Very much appreciated. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the chart of King Charles. I'm going to pull that up. So I'm going to show you first what is the houses that are being activated, the signs. So we're going to look at both the D1, the main chart, and then we're also going to be looking at what's known as the moon chart as well. So I'm going to show you that first. Also, quick disclaimer, this reading is for entertainment purposes only. All statements about King Charles, well, these are all just speculation about the astrological energies and allegedlys. All right, so let's look at where the eclipse is going to be taking place on April 8th. Let me grab my pen here, which April 8th is going to be the day that this video is released. So the eclipse is happening in the sign of Pisces, okay? And it's going to be the ninth house of King Charles. And this is known as the D1 chart in Vedic astrology. So the main chart, the D1 chart, the ninth house. We also have to consider that this other side of the axis is going to be the third house of Virgo. So remember, the eclipses are happening on an eclipse axis. Both sides are being influenced. So the lunar eclipse on March 25th, it was in the third house of Virgo, and then the solar eclipse on April 8th is in the ninth house of Pisces. So we're going to look at what are the both of those houses, what do they represent? We also have to take a look at the moon chart because that's just as important. And for those of you that have watched some of my previous videos, as you get older, your moon chart actually starts to become more and more important as you age because all the planets reach the age of maturity. So the moon chart is over here, but what I want you to know, the moon chart's really easy to calculate. It's just you make the moon sign the first house. That's all you do. And then you order the houses accordingly. That's all the moon chart is. But for convenience sake, my computer program, Kala, it generates a moon chart over here if I set it up. So in the moon chart, the eclipses are going to be activating the 12-6 axis. So in his moon chart, King Charles is an Aries. Okay. And we just talked about actually that's in the world prediction charts. We use Aries usually as the first house. Well, in the case of King Charles, his moon is in the sign of Aries. So let's break all of this down. So we got the ninth house, we got the third house, then we got the 12th house and the sixth house. So this can give us a lot of information about what's going to be happening here for the month of April, and then also what could be potentially happening for the next few months here. I got some slides for you all so you can learn a little bit of astrology while you're watching this video. So let's go back to the slideshow. So obviously I wrote in the slide, oops, let's go back one. King Charles has his cancer diagnosis. We just talked about that. And we're wondering, how is the eclipse going to influence the situation? So the eclipse is in Pisces. It also influences the opposite sign of Virgo. This is known as the 9-3 axis. So let's talk about the ninth house. The ninth house is one of the Dharma houses. So the Dharma houses are the trine houses. Those are 1, 5, and 9. Those are actually the considered the fortunate or the good houses in your chart. So they're like the opposite of what the Dashtana or the evil houses would be. So we always like to look at these houses as far as like, what is your life purpose? What is going to bring you to a state of, what is going to advance your soul growth? What is going to bring you to a higher state of happiness? We want to look at those houses. So that's interesting. The ninth house, and the reason why the ninth house is considered such a blessing house is because it represents religion, gurus, higher teachings, wisdom, world travel, holy books, and philosophy. Now, the reason why this is considered so fortunate is, remember, Vedic astrology, it's rooted very much in yogic thinking. So this idea of whatever brings you closer to divine union is what's the most important in your astrology chart. So the rishis and the yogis that developed this mode of astrology, that's what they were always thinking of. So even the wealth houses are like 2 and 11. They're not necessarily considered the most important according to the ancient rishis and the yogis. So religion, gurus, higher teachings, wisdom, world travel, holy books, and philosophy, that's going to be considered the most important as far as moving your soul forward in life. So you can expect that with King Charles, this is all going to be part of his life right now. He might be asking the big questions right now, like, what's the purpose of my life? He might be opening up holy books, maybe the Bible, maybe studying philosophy. He is the King of England, so he's head of the Church of England, so he might be very much embracing this role. And even if he maybe wasn't as religious earlier in his life, and I'm just speculating right now, I don't know how religious King Charles is, but this could be a time where, because he's dealing with his mortality, he's like looking at all these questions. So maybe he's like going through his treatments, maybe he's kind of just like relaxing right now, and he's thinking about all these higher meanings of life right now. The other thing I want to bring up with the ninth house, and it has a very important signification. Now, they have a thing in Vedic astrology called Bhavat Bhavam, which is house to house. So the ninth house, if you count it, is 12th house from the 10th house. Okay, so it's a draining influence on your career and your public visibility. So the ninth house can represent things like resignations, retirement, and even things like abdication. I do want to point that out. The energies are being activated for that. So if you think about it, the reason why the ninth house is associated with resignation and retirement and abdication and also religion is, if you think about it, usually when someone reaches a certain phase in their life and they retire and they get older, they start thinking about the bigger meaning of life because they realize their mortality. Let's go talk about what the third house means, because this is also going to be influenced during this eclipse as well. The third house is being activated. Now, the third house has more to do with like siblings, media communications, hobbies, courage, day-to-day narrative. So King Charles, the siblings might actually be very much visiting. They might be very much involved right now. Media communications, maybe he's having a lot of meetings right now with his staff about, how they should be presenting this whole situation. Hobbies. Now I don't remember what King Charles the hobbies were. I do remember that he does he was really into the organic farming, right? You can comment down below. So he might be kind of like, maybe he's taking it easy, maybe he's going out to the gardens, maybe he's kind of doing his hobbies. And also third house has to do with day-to-day narrative. So there's kind of like this steady, just daily routines. Maybe that's probably what's keeping him grounded right now at this stage of life. The other thing, remember, in the moon chart, we also talked about the 12 and the 6th houses being activated. Okay, so let's talk about the 12th house. The 12th house is very much connected to the 9th house, by the way. Whenever I see the 12th and the 9th house activated, I'm thinking this is such an important spiritual time in one's life. So the 12th house, it is also associated with retirement. Isn't that interesting? Just like the 9th house. It is associated with hospitalization. Now, the 12th house is a little bit different than the 9th house, though. The 12th house is one of the Dashtana houses because it's associated with losses. These are losses on spiritual account, though. So, for example, and this is an extreme interpretation, the 12th house could represent prison, like being incarcerated. And if you think about it, if somebody was living a bad life and they were incarcerated, the 12th house is like giving them time to reflect on what they've done or whatever is going on. So sometimes that 12th house can be forced on you through illness or the system, but the 12th house is, there is a little bit of animosity associated with it. It isn't as positive as the ninth house, but the 12th house will still bring you that spiritual results. So the 12th house is also associated with seclusion, isolation, spiritual endeavors, forgiveness, by the way, I didn't include there, but forgiving the past, kind of letting go of the past, astral realm, ghosts, spirits. So the 12th house is associated with things like ashrams and spiritual centers and going on meditation retreats. Okay. Now, depending on how King Charles is, this could manifest as many different things. I mean, this could be literally going to one of his estates and being on a sort of retreat. Okay. This could be a lot of different situations. The sixth house is also being activated with the eclipse. Now, the sixth house, it's associated with disease, conflict, imbalance, enemies. When we talk about enemies, enemies can be literal like competitors or enemies, but also enemies can be like enemies to the body. So that's what I'm primarily focused on. So he has this cancer diagnosis. The cancer is the enemy right now. So he's dealing with those. The 12th house, by the way, I didn't bring this up. It also represents hidden enemies. So let's realize that this cancer diagnosis, he initially went in for a surgery and then they had found out that apparently there was this cancer there. So the sixth house and the 12th house axis can be somewhat of a difficult axis, just like I see it being difficult for the world. Because if we take Aries as the ascendant for just the world chart, it's a difficult time. Now, what I wanted to really point out is if we take a notice that the eclipse is happening in the ninth house of the D1 chart and the 12th house of the moon chart. These are both houses that have to do with retirement and resignations. Isn't that interesting? So the energy is very strongly influencing a push towards that direction right now. And so let's go to the next slide here. So the eclipse, remember on April 8th, it's very powerful, especially for the next 30 days. So that's when it's going to be the most acute. And then for the next 3 months, it's still going to be pretty strong. So it's like that first 30 days, it's really strong. And then it kind of just wanes down as the months kind of click by. But I mean, we could see if in the next 3 months, realize that that energy is really strong towards like resignation or retirement. Now, remember, these energies are just like, think of them as currents. They're pulling you in a certain direction, but you still have your free will. Okay. Now, could he make a recovery? Could he like really turn this around? Yeah. If he does, then he would be able to override those energies. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out was the ninth and 12th houses are with, that concept of getting right with God. So remember, we're talking about like your mortality, getting right with God, doing your repentance, doing your penance. Those are all things associated with the ninth and the 12th house. So that's kind of interesting as well. Getting right with God, getting your spirituality in focus, getting those important things in focus. The energies, like I said, are very strongly heading in the direction of retirement and abdication. Okay. Especially for the next 3 months. It's not guaranteed, but the energies are there. When I do astrology readings for clients, what I tell people is when they're in planetary periods, the planets are like powerful. They're like powerful forces that are almost acting on you. If you could think about it, you might be in a stage of your life where if you could imagine, you're standing in a stream or a river and the current is moving a certain way. That's the way the planets influence us. So the current is moving a certain way. Now, could you decide to paddle upstream? It would take a lot of effort and it could wear you out and it could be very miserable if you try to paddle upstream. Or could you try to go downstream and go more with flowing with the current? That's what we have to ask ourselves when we're looking at the astrological energies. Is it better to try to fight the current or go with the current or accept the current? That's kind of within our free will. How do we respond to these astrological energies? So we know that in King Charles's chart, the astrological energies are really, really, really pushing towards this kind of retirement energy for the next few months. Okay. So this gives us a lot of information. about what direction is heading. Now, I think they did report, they did get some pictures of King Charles recently, and maybe you can comment down below. I believe they saw him out at visiting a church or something along that. I'm going off my memory, so please forgive me if I got it wrong, but I think they did get some pictures of him recently. Anyways, that's what we got for King Charles. I wish King Charles and the royal family the best, of course. There's a lot of, this is a serious time during eclipses, and I wish the best for the royal family and all of you watching this as well. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.